as you were just entering, it's your time just to give us a wonderful opening prayer coming from you as a veteran and an elder of our community. Let's put our hands together for him as he comes.
But no, get some I had a little button piece. And I want pizza chair and dinner to sit I just want to share before the rappel just a portion of scripture. Because yes, Kabelo, right, but what is the base? Yeah, Kabelo. I want to share on 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 29. It reads as follows. Now what have I done, said David? Is there not a cause? This portion of scripture is taken from, just to give you a background, as I would like to believe most of you would know stories David and Goliath. This is when David went to the battlefield for a different purpose, and you find when Banaba Israel has been terrorized by the giant alien Goliath, and everybody was afraid. And he then had to challenge whether he can take up the giant. I'm saying this because the background of what happened in 76 was that in 1960, Kabelo shooting, what the government of the day did was to instill fear in our people. Or if we need of confronting the government, we should know when he's coming, and all the other ammunition, all one. So to me, he was Goliath. I remember in the early 70s when I started being a pastor, I frequently, because I was doing school ministry by then, I frequent Thobile and the area because I was already actually aware of what is happening. Near had Waka issues study politiki, never Halmeram because of me. And but when 1976 came, the youth, which I likened Horiki David, decided to face the giant. He says here, is there no cause? In other words, the youth felt that there is a cause that we need to be liberated. We cannot fear this giant forever. We cannot perpetually think that actually there is nothing that we can do. And therefore, they had to take up the government without arms. The government armed with all, ammunition, but they said, we are going to face it. And they did. They faced the giant. We lost many of the young people then. We were determined, even though people were falling left, right, and center. And there was a slogan that the blood of those who are falling is actually watering the tree of liberation. Meaning that the fear was no more there. It was a matter of saying, is there no cause? So the young people saw the cause of facing the regime at that time. I can see most of you are young, you may not necessarily have been there. You may have been told stories, but I can see that there are those who were there. They can attest to what I am saying. And that on its own has brought us as far as we are. But let me further say, let the Lord help us that this liberation that we have attained should never be in vain. It must be a liberation that brings total, emancipation of our people. So therefore, the issue is that is there no cause? There's still a cause for us to really face up the things that are there which are not correct, so that we are able to correct them. So, with those words, allow me to say this word of prayer. Madlodlo, we thank you for this time that you've given unto us. Remembering the fallen heroes. Remembering, oh God, those young people who decided to see to it that they will face the regime, regardless of the consequences. Yes, there are those who today are crippled because of that incident. Many of us lost our loved ones, but Father, it was for the cause. Help us, therefore, God, to wage this struggle beyond this point, that we should get, whatever we fought for, or what those young people died for. I thank you and I bless you, God, as I dedicate this event, oh God, into you, that lead us and guide us, and that Christ reign in us. Over and above, oh God, let us know him as our own personal Savior. We thank you, bless you, Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We ask the student item by Learner Representative Council Member of Naledi High. Shall we give them a song as they come?
Good afternoon to you all. I'm Mponchonyane and I'm here to deliver a speech about the Naledi High School of Heritage. We all know that Naledi High was one of the school who was once had a student so-called Enos Ngutshane, and the former student that was so-called Enos Ngutshane fought for us, fought for the freedom that we have today. Enos Ngutshane, as we can see him right now, is with us. Actually, Enos Ngutshane wrote a letter to the Maburu. He was standing for the student, fought for us, so that we can be free, not being taught by Afrikaans. We all want freedom. We are here by ourselves. We all want that freedom that Enos Ngutshane fought for it. As I am a former student of Naledi High, I also thank to Enos Ngutshane, who represent us as a member of our student. Enos Ngutshane fought for us in a heavy havoc way. I'd like to say viva to Enos Ngutshane, viva! Viva, 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 viva! Amandla! Yeah, I've got something to tell you. Enos Ngutshane penned a letter to the Minister of month before the notorious student grievance image. Here I've got he was a one former student who started the uprising of the June 16 Youth Day. He was the one who made us to march for our freedom. We don't want it to be taught in Afrikaans. We all wanted to be taught in English because we can also understand the English language, not Afrikaans. Do you get it? We get it. Yes. Viva! Amanda! Yeah. I'm a black child. I'm African. And I'd like to say thank you those who have came up to hear my application speech that I have delivered to you. You see, nothing much more interesting. I rest my case.
I love this young man. Let's put our hands together for him one more time. Woo! He's on fire. Yeah. Time is a gift. It began the day we were born, and it shall end the day we die. For every individual. And it will depend on any one of us how well we use our time. One man said, life is not about duration. It's not about how long you live, but it's about contribution. It's how much you give. So if you just live long years, but you've contributed nothing, you were just one of those people who added to humanity numbers, but you haven't changed anything. So we thank God for those who used their time very well. Shall we ask the comrade? This meeting is not about any political party. It's about our heritage. All parties, all people who are not in any party, but we have come to celebrate those who really fought for our struggle and make sure that all of us, we are liberated. On the very same note, freedom is not, or let me say democracy, it's not freedom to be foolish, but I think it is freedom to be responsible. You will interpret it. Let's put our hands together for Brother KB, the comrade, as he comes to the fourth. I love him so much. Let's put our hands together for him to welcome us.
Sanibonani. Ninjani? Siyakhona. Bengifuna ukukhuluma on behalf of our councillor ubaba Basubang. Sithanda ukubonga wonke umuntu othatha isikhathi sakhe wezala. We like to thank each and every one of you guys who came here to come and support this day. We want to welcome you, uthi enjoy the lecture and have fun. Thank you.
Wahambanati. Thank you very much. Let me ask Elena, Representative Council of Thabo Senior Secondary School, Miss Kemoratile Moeketsie. Are you here? Just come. Please come. Come. Your brother Natama Hamanat.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kemoratile Moeketsie, and I am here to deliver a speech about Youth Day. Youth Day, a celebration it seems, a day when thousands of students were ambushed by the Apartheid regime. But on this day, tribute we must pay to all those students' lives. The role of youth we need to recognize. In liberation of South Africa from the Apartheid regime, a holiday with a horrifying theme. Hector taking his last breath the last thing he sees are children's deaths. No child should die this way, but sadly, this is a reality of that day. How in any timeline was this right? They had no weapons, so we know who started this fight. Children in danger because of the color of their skin. Men turning into murderers. Who really wins? Black lives, but white chose this language. Their roots they tried to salvage. They went to school to enrich their minds, but on this day, they ran for their lives. Many families and friends lost, a line they surely crossed, years and years after the day, and yet the discrimination stays. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together for her one more time. We are all slaves and creatures of time. Many times over the years, people try to reverse time, but it was in vain. Even today, we use products, we try to apply them on our faces so that we may look young. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how much young we may look on the outside, we are old on the inside. So when you're living on earth, make sure that every moment counts. I think we need to go straight to the lecture, but before we do that, we need to call to the forth Ms. Thobile Madlodlo to come and give an introduction of our keynote lecture. She's the president of the Learner Representative Council of Thomas Mofulo High School. What a very high profile. Let's put our hands together for her as she comes.
Greeting is a fundamental key through words communication. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, consider yourselves greeted. Standing before you is Thobile Madlodlo, and I will be introducing Dr. Tshepo Mvulane Moloi. Current occupation: wrapping up his postdoctoral research fellowship with the Johannesburg Institution of Advanced Study and Alternate of University of Johannesburg. Lectures and supervises masters and doctoral candidates at UNICEF and Liverpool John Mary University, United Kingdom. Freelance writer and political assistant. A Golden Key Honors Society Fellow, Brighton Young Minds BYM, Sir Abby Bailey Fellow. Some of his past appointments include served as a writing consultant or academic facilitator at the Academic Development Center 2030 at University of Johannesburg. Political analyst on Newsroom Africa, Channel 405 since October 2019. Content developer for the African Thought Module, Center for Advanced Technologies 2017 to 2018 at UJ. Political analyst on African News Network 7, ANN7 during 2015 and 2016. Inter-house warden at Robin Crust Male Res, 1 August 2014 to 31 August 2015 at UJ. He also worked as a research assistant to Professor Chris Isaac. He guest lectured the module African Political Thought to Political Science Honors students in 2012 to 2013 at Zululand University. Appointed as project manager 2009, post his tender as a chairman of the Youth Entrepreneurship Program in 2008 at Stellenbosch Community Center, and also served as an independent electrical commissioner official in Leadenhurst 2001. Thank you.
Let's applaud him as he comes.
Molweni, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Absheni. It's chilly, isn't it? It's winter, so we understand the lords of the weather are dealing with us. So thank you very much to the president of Thomas Mofolo. We did get a sense she's nervous. So we have to understand, we all passed through that stage, right? We were all once upon a time, public speaking is a challenge. And we want to appreciate the leadership of the students. It's so significant on occasions like this that we make sure that they are not treated as a by the way, but they're treated as core part of the program. And so we thank you to them for their participation and attendance. And we hope we are going to have a relationship where we can come to your schools on your invitation to speak to your classmates and the rest of your schoolmates, because today they're not able to join us. So with those words, I want to greet everybody that's here in attendance. I want to recognize the leadership that is in our midst. I see the teachers in Tatema Posa. I see Ubabu Enos Ngutshane here. I see some elder citizens whom I may not be familiar with, but I want them to feel greeted. And to parents, supporters, and in your respective positions, I want to recognize and greet you this morning. With that said, let me begin from the beginning. You know, former President Thabo Mbeki said, when he opened the I'm an African speech in 1996, he said, on this August occasion, we should begin from the beginning. And then he goes on to read a poem. So some of us were disappointed. But let's not, I hope I won't be that disappointing in this lecture. Now, the theme of today is called the 45th anniversary. The 45th anniversary of the 1976 student uprising. I was already introduced. I see the screen is not nice to us. So I'm going to try and speak, even though some of you won't be able to see the screen, but I'll hope to just get on with it. Now, first and foremost, today is the 8th of June, 2021. Let me check in the audience. What is the significance of this day? And please feel free to raise your hand. Let me give it to a student right at the back. Please come forward quickly and tell us. Quickly, quickly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, I'm a bit shy. My name is Leseho Ishani. I'm a grade 10 learner at Naledi High. I'm going to be answering the question.
What does today mean?
Oh, today I think it's the day the march started. The march that the students of Morris and Benin City and Naledi High students started.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? She says today is the day she thinks that the march started. And she said, Morris, she's not telling you Morris Isaacson, but it's okay. Does anyone else want to assist? You at the back? Please come to the mic because of the recording.
Hi. I'm here because of the Soweto Uprising, and I think I'm here because people, younger students who were in the Soweto Uprising fought for our freedom. They fought for us not to study in the African language, which we wouldn't understand. That's why we are in the Soweto Uprising today, to celebrate that they fought for us. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It's a pity they don't tell us their names. So, okay. So thank you to the two students to just tell us what they think today represents. I don't know, that hand looks like it's a burning hand. Come quickly, run, because I need to begin. Run, so that we don't waste any more time.
On 8 June 1976, this is the day whereby policemen came to Naledi High to arrest Enos Ngutshane for sending them the letter. I thank you.
Okay, all right. Now, the last response was the 8th of June 1976 represents Obabu Enos Ngutshane being arrested at Naledi High for writing a letter. That's what this student just said. Now, we need to correct the record. And I want to begin at the beginning. And the beginning for the context of today will be January 1976. Okay? I can begin earlier to 1510. If you can take your mind as far back as 1510, this is the first time there is contact between black people and white people in what would become South Africa. At the time, that was not the name that was given to this geographical location where we stand. Now, I can go far as back as that, but we don't have all day. So, and I can, after 1510, I can fast forward to 1903. Some of you know Vereeniging, yes? But do you know what Vereeniging represents? I can go there, and that's now 1903. That's almost 300 years after 1510. So that's how long the story goes. Now, 1903, just so that I say something on it in passing. This is the first time the British and the Boers come together and they sign an agreement between the two of them that they are going to work together against black people. So black people became, for the first time, the arch enemy of the so-called European descendants. So when you talk about Vereeniging, you must understand it's called, in the literature, it's called the Vereeniging Minutes. So I can't even go as far back as then, we don't have all day. I can fast forward again to 1952. So I began in 1510, I fast forwarded to 1903, now I fast forward to 1952. This is the first time that what you guys popularly hear as Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd. This is the first time, because in 1948, the National Party won elections to rule, to be the government. And then they set up commissions, they set up policies that today we all talk about apartheid. That's when that would happen in 1948. And so 1952, this is the year that Hendrik, the then Prime Minister, he basically sets up a commission under his deputy. His deputy was W.W. Esselen. If you do your history, you're not going to talk about Verwoerd the way you talk about Esselen, because actually that's the architect of apartheid, not Verwoerd. Verwoerd was like any other president. He gave the task to the man did the task, Verwoerd announced the decisions and the policies were implemented. So, no W.W. Esselen, because it is from the Esselen Commission that apartheid would be implemented as an official policy of the National Party. So, again, like I was saying, I can begin in 1952. We don't have the time. So today, I fast forward 20 years later from 52 to 1976, January. So we must begin the year that has made us combine and meet today. So what happens in January 1976? It should be known that we have contesting. This microphone is, can we move this mic? We have contesting versions of what happened in 1976. And I want to take you to a chronology of events from January. And sources may vary here and there, but I'm going to give you just the source, and the source I'm using for your own records is Ubabu Seth Mazibuko. Siamaz? Who's that is Seth Mazibuko? Quickly. He says he was a leader. Okay. I'll talk about Ntate Seth. I'll explain who he was, but basically, this is a source that he forwarded to me, and it gives a nice chronology. Of course, it's his source, but I'm just sharing it for the sake of context. He says in January, the second inspector, Midlands Tswana School Board, held on the 28th of January. So 20 January, we begin the story. The Secretary for Bantu Education had stated that all direct taxes paid by the black population of South Africa are being sent to the various homelands for educational purposes. So, what's important with what I've just said, before we go and speak about June 16, 1976, we need to understand the background that would lead us to that day. And in my context, I argue to those 3 days, because it wasn't just the 16th. Right? So, anyway, so he tells us that we move. In February, 2 members of the Midlands Tswana School Board, Mr. Aibna Likabe and Mr. Joseph Bile, were dismissed because they challenged the board's refusal to use Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. So, already something happened in January, the 20th. Something happened in February, beginning. 24th of February, you had Form 3 was a Thomas Mofo. aphakamela principal. Now, this is very important because we are in Naledi. And when you want to argue, you want to debate, in Naledi, what was Naledi's contribution? When does Naledi come to the story? For a lot of people, the 24th of February. So as early as February, Naledi comes to the story through Thomas Mvulane. Now, in March the 14th, parents at Donaldson Higher Primary School anonymously rejected the use of Afrikaans. Now, the key word here being higher primary. So, we have not yet spoken about high schools, and I'm in March. In April the 26th, teachers and opposition parties in parliament, this cannot be true. Remember I said, this is a source Yagababu said, this here cannot be true. He says, the teachers in parliament basically challenged Bantu Education. False. There was not a single black person in parliament in 1976 in South Africa. So there's no ways that this could be true. But the African Teachers Association of South Africa, what they called ATASA, they met the Secretary for Bantu Education and presented him with a memorandum concerning medium of instruction. And they reported after the meeting that the problem was going to be reviewed. So that's the 26th of April. Then on the 30th of April, opposition speakers in the House of Assembly, okay, at least this is true, because these are white people. So white people talking on our behalf, because Tina, we're not there in that house, right? Opposition speakers in parliament called on the government to allow black pupils to choose the official language in which they wish to be educated. So here, think Helen Suzman, think Van Zyl Slabbert. Okay, these are what you call the white liberals. Okay, so our matter was first taken up by white liberals to speak to their fellow white brothers. Don't be offensive and don't use force against in your education system by introducing Bantu education. Now, in this narrative, on the 30th of April, Ubabu says, 15-year-old Self Mazibugo. That's Fagamanch. 15-year-old Self Mazibugo leads the first school boycott. Sigu Pilaskon, April 30. Right? Now, is he telling the truth? Let's take him as a benefit of the doubt. Okay? Let's take it as a benefit of the doubt. Because on the 19th of May, a committee of students meets with, they submit in their school a 5-point memorandum protesting against the use of Afrikaans to their principal, Mr. S. Mpulo. And this gets given to the Inspector of Education, Mr. Sam de Beer. So we need to understand the school he's talking about is his school, which was Orlando West or Pefeni Junior Secondary. Remember what I said, keyword being junior secondary, not high school. So as early as May, Asagaboni High School, well, 24th of February, Thomas Mvulane, it was a junior secondary. It was not a high school. Okay? Now, here, one may pause and say, he needs to include the first meeting when the Boers come and knock at the house of Mr. Enos Ngutshane. This is May. Now, a lot of people say Enos Ngutshane, June 8, 1976, he was arrested. Sad to say, it's not a half-truth. That is utterly false. Let's correct the record. The first time the name of Enos Ngutshane comes to the narrative of the 1976 student uprising should be May. And this is because only him and his parents know that. No newspapers know that because it wasn't a public event. He wasn't arrested. What he demanded was a warrant of arrest, and the police failed to produce it. When they failed, now keep in mind, the young Enos is the secretary of SAZIM at this time. So he's conscious of how to play politics. As secretary of SAZIM, he was well vested with how to move against the system. Of course, naively, right? But still, he was resistant in that right. And when the policemen were angry that he refused to be arrested, they left to come back the following month. Now, when they came back, same thing. He asked for a warrant of arrest. They couldn't produce it. Therefore, he was not arrested. So when we pick him up on the 8th of June, it is because that's the third time. Because now, and now who's the boss at school? It's the principal. It's not your parents. So he obliged. He was fetched by the principal, Eklasini, Maglandi. He came to the principal's office, and conversation went in the direction of, these gentlemen are here to arrest you, go pack your bags and leave. What does the young Enos do? Instead of going and pack his bags, short left to the leadership. And basically, the leadership said to him, go to your class, pack up, but don't come out. Maybe come out after 10 minutes. In the interim, what do they do as leadership? They ring the bell of the school. And you know, Angiti, we think we're changing periods now. Then when the students thought they were going to the next class, leadership called them, and there are different versions to details, but we don't want to get lost in that. For example, one version is they're not sure how the mini vehicle was burned. Now, some people, they want to think of petrol and all that, but I mean, these were kids at school. Petrol. And petrol. So the latest version I got, which I'm hoping Bob Enos can correct. But Umama Kubela, she set a tennis ball alight, and it is this tennis ball that she threw to the car. Now, we need to verify this detail. It sounds like it's practical, but we need to verify it because she's alive. Kabelo. She's alive. She didn't join us today. She said she's old, so she doesn't want to be making any contact. But She wishes us well. And she said to me, Tshepo, I'm not interested in talking about what we did anymore. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Kabelo is the former CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. She was in Naledi High, Gibogula Ezola 2. She's just a street away from Ubabu Enos' house. Yeah, they are streets apart. So they are neighbors, if you like. And their politics is almost the same in terms of the narrative until Ubabu Enos would skip the country and go to exile. Zanele never went to exile. She's popular for saying the words, "Comrades, leave. I will keep the fires burning." And we don't talk about these people. You know, we need, and this is why I say we need to correct the mainstream record. Not because we want to glorify anyone. You know, even maskuluma about Enos, because but you are now making it all about Enos. Nati besiko na lapo. Why every year it's Enos? And they're not wrong, but at the same time, they're not right as well. It's impossible to speak about everybody. You can imagine you're talking about school, you're talking about students. You know? So but when you tell us about someone, it's useless if you don't give us the story, the context, and you just give us a name. It doesn't give us a sense of what happened. So I think when we do talk about any name, and then Ngababiza, I can drop names here. Khotso Siakholo, Ntate Ntibe Motaponyane. You know, I can do that. I can go on like that. But if you're not going to give us context, all you're doing, if I'm marking your essay, all I'll say in your essay is your name dropping. That's all you're doing. I don't know, what am I supposed to make with just names, right? So we must not name drop. We must actually get into the meat. Now, let's go back to the timeline. I left you in May because I was saying Ubabu Enos is missing in this slot, in this narrative. And by the way, when I say him, he's not alone. But Angiti were in Naledi, and I said the theme is Naledi's marginalized contribution. So this is why I'm putting a special emphasis on where we are. So just for context purposes. Now, the narrative continues. On the 19th of May, pupils at Bele Higher Primary, keyword, higher primary. So we're still with the primaries. High schools, not yet. In Orlando West, Epefeni, they go on strike. So, according to this narrative, the first school that went on strike is Ipele and Ipefeni. Then on the 20th, Mtonjeni Higher Primary and Tula Sizwa Higher Primary. Stay with me. Keywords, higher primary. Not yet high school. They also joined the strike on the 19th of May. May 20, Mtonjeni Higher Primary also joined. And then the 22nd, this is for the first time we see Inkatha Yesizwe. We know what Inkatha is, correct? Yes? No? Asiyazi Inkatha? I understand them cool work share Shabazio. Please come quickly, because of time. Lucky.
Inkatha ilento abogogo bayibeka la ekhanda nesizulu le makubaza umuntu ayotheza noma ahamba ayokhamanzi.
Okay, he's right, by the way. He's right. That's not a joke. That's a proper Zulu definition of Inkatha. But what is the Inkatha Yesizwe that is being referred to here? It is what you today call the IFP, right? Inkatha Freedom Party. What would eventually become Inkatha Freedom Party. So we see here that bekunama ama hostel, and that's where most of those hostels, Edube and then the rest of the locations, they would basically become these members under Inkatha Yesizwe. So what Ubabu Seth says here is a meeting of parents, school boards, Inkatha Yesizwe members led by the urban representative, Mr. Gibson and Tula, decided that students should return to school while the matter received attention. Yasuga manje, black on black. Because these ones are disagreeing with the students must strike against Bantu education. This is 22 May. Then on the 24th of May, students reject a call by Orlando de Kloof School Board to return to school. The strike spreads to Pimville Higher Primary School. Now, maybe if I pause here before I get to June, because I'm going to take you from the 1st of June until the 16th. We need to appreciate Soweto before we talk about the Soweto uprisings. Who knows, where do we get the name Soweto? Someone here is saying from the Boers. The name Soweto. Come forward. Quickly, because of time.
I read it in a very short space. My name is Tshepo, by the way. Soweto means Southern Western Township, and there was a competition that was launched about who can come up with the best name. And the people were informed, and then from there on, names were submitted. But now, since then, there are other names like West Bay or Western Native Township. So it's about the native township. It is the west, and it's south, and well, so where to from here? It's my joke.
Okay, because of time, I just want to get to move, because that's a lecture of its own. It's criminal that our education system does not teach you things that should be basics. You need to know that there was no Soweto before 1950s. This name Soweto didn't exist. Now, then the question should be, what was this place called Soweto before the name Soweto? And the answer to that is there was no one name. You were simply a location. How many locations are in Soweto, by the way? 15, 20? Guys, this is exactly my point. These are things that should be basics. There are 32 locations that make up the township of Soweto. 32. Now, if I ask you, what is the first location in Soweto? Who can tell us? All right, someone here says Orlando. Okay, abanye bathi Middlelands, abanye bathi Pimville. Tshepo uthini? Cliptown. Okay, so guys, it's very important that as I speak here, I'm realizing, because I need to keep to the theme of 1976, but I can't do that when I realize that most of the stuff you are supposed to know, you don't know it. So you must know, Uguti, to understand in 1976 and how Soweto becomes the hotbed, and how actually Soweto becomes the biggest black township in South Africa. There are reasons that inform this. So I said, what's the first and oldest township? Someone here said Orlando. If you don't read and reread your history, you will agree with him. But it is false. I don't even want to talk about Middlelands. It's totally outright false. The oldest township in Soweto is what initially was called Klipspruit, later to be called Kliptown. A section of Klipspruit would be split into what today you call Pimville. Pimville, by the way, would therefore have the first school in Soweto. So the oldest school in Soweto is in Pimville. Does anyone know what school that is? Yebo? Musi, yes, correct. Musi is the oldest school. Now, this is important because there are 8 heritage schools in Soweto. Do we know the 8? Now, according to Prasad, and he's correct, it's now 8 plus 1. Do we know this? First of all, let's begin with the 8. What are these 8 heritage schools in Soweto? Okay, don't howl. Come to the front. Quickly, because of time. Okay. Use this one.
Because of the already mentioned Naledi High, that's a school of heritage. We also have Maurice Isaacson. I think it's there at Jabulani or White City. No, I thank you.
Okay, guys, because this is very important and we don't have time, I'm going to tell you the 9 Soweto heritage schools. If you're noting, note, because I want to be quick. I want us to return to the theme, which is the 45th anniversary and Naledi's contribution. The 8 plus 1 heritage schools. Number 1, Madibane High School in Dikloof. It's a heritage school. Number 2, Meadowlands High in Meadowlands. Number 3, Morris Isaacson High in Central Western Jabavu. So Soli is correct. Number 4 is Mosi High School in Pimville, because it should actually have been number 1 on this list. And then number 5 is Naledi High School in Naledi. So Naledi is a heritage school. Number 6 is Orlando High School in Orlando East. Number 7 is Orlando West High School in Orlando West. Number 8 is Sikano Towane High in Snawane. And number 9 is Mbuyisa Makubo Primary School in Orlando West. Now, these details are very important as I tell you about the history of Soweto. So, quickly, and by the way, I'm not advertising the book, but this is Miss Eunice Rakal. You see there's a poster there that's put up. That's her publishing company. Get this book, it's for sale here. This is Bridge Books. I've said when I lecture, it's useless if people don't know where to get the material. So this book is only coming out this month. It's still brand new. And so it's a great assistance in the details. So this is some of where I get some of my sources that I'm talking about, so that you are able to say, right? So that's the 8 plus 1 heritage schools. Now, quickly, Kliptown is number 1. Orlando East is the 2nd township, and which means Madibane High and Orlando High, they can compete to be the tag. I gave the commemorative lecture for Orlando High in 2019. They were celebrating 80 years. Right, so Naledi High is young. How old is Naledi High? 58. Baba, 57, 58, correct. Naledi High is 1963. What's the irony of today? I asked you what today represents. Naledi High opened its doors on the 8th of June. Today, in 1963. You should know these details about yourselves. Then, next door here, behind us, Thomas Mofolo. Thomas Mofolo, how old is Thomas? Come on, LRC. Don't embarrass yourselves. All right, because of time. Thomas Mofolo and Thabo. You must just know both of them, 1974. Naledi High is a decade older, so Naledi High is the big brother. Now, why the argument that even though Thomas Mofolo on the 24th, Apartheid principally, therefore Thomas should be recognized as the first school that stood up Naledi. It should be understood in the context of structures. Thomas Mofolo and Thabo didn't have any student structures for leadership. Only Naledi High did. And so, agendas, caucuses, Naledi High was leading in that right. There's something I intentionally did today, which most of you didn't get. Rrepresentative again, Libon. MC Obutinka Kabelo, and then Raboroko came Thobile again. Who amongst you know Raboroko? Okay, I see Naledi High students picking their hand. Because of time, because I want to just run now. There's a reason why I asked Raboroko to come and open today with a prayer. Naledi High, you must understand one thing about your school. If you talk about any student leader from Naledi High, 60s, 70s, they became politicized through the church. It was through the youth gospel that they became politicized. There's a book here by Reverend Chikana, No Life of My Own. You know, the funny thing about this book, he did so many things for Naledi High. He was a student at Naledi High. He went to TEF, came back, was a student teacher. And then during 76, he was with Enos. But in his entire book, he only has one sentence on Enos Ngutshane in passing. Now, I'm saying this because even the people that were there, the way they choose to record the history is problematic. Will mislead you. Because when I sat with Ngutshane for 4 hours and he narrated details, by the way, he was not arrested on the 8th, just so that we're clear. It was an attempted arrest because his fellow students, they basically burnt the car of the police. The police panicked. When they panicked, he's in the principal's office. He looks at the principal. He sees there's no way forward. He leaves. Because he's young, he joins the strike outside. He doesn't run away until he's grabbed by Reverend Frank Chikan, who was a student teacher at the time, and says, "Hey, you can't go home. This is the 3rd time they've wanted to arrest you." And this is when he was taken to a safe house called Naledi. We say safe house, but it is actually, Frank Chikana's home, right? And he disappears from the story until the 14th, when he is now arrested. He was only arrested on the 14th. Now, on the 16th, when Soweto was on fire, where is Ngutshane? He is appearing in court. So can you imagine the student that would have started or is known to have started the chaos was not actually there on the 16th. So this is where you guys start talking about the students that would be killed, that would be shot, and all that, right? And so he's in court, and from there, basically, his story takes another direction. So even on the 13th, when there was a caucus at Donaldson Center, he wasn't part of that. Okay? Now, just so that I don't forget what I had started to say, I said the students of Naledi High, they need to know, because this is not a small thing. All the student leaders, or students who became leaders in the 60s and 70s, it's called Naledi High. It was through the students' Christian movement. And Ntate Raboroko, who came to open Kabelo, he is right at the forefront of that story. And you guys don't even give him the time of day because you don't even know those details. Now he produced a book, The International Assemblies of God. And go anywhere and look for this book, you're not going to find it. This is the violence of the nonsense we have in our shops. So if you're interested to get this book, you must talk to him directly. He's here. But more importantly, I say this because in this book, he actually narrates how students like Frank Chikane, how students like Enos Ngutshane, Abosipongile Kabelo, Nim Tembu, how they became conscientized in the politics of the day through the student Christian movement, which he was leading. He is their father. He is their spiritual father, whichever way you want to look at it. But we don't speak about these people. When we speak, it's headlines. And we always speak about radicals and action, and we forget the source. And this is so important because right through the struggle history, spirituality, the theme of Christianity, the theme of belief, we somehow overlook that and we just focus on the violence. So this is very, very important what I've just said now. Right? So, Dr. Raboroko, we appreciate you and we are so humbled that you... Now, let's get into June. On June 1, I again remember, I'm on this chronology and that said Mazibu. On June 1, Barry Sikanunto and a secondary joined the strike. June 3, pupils at Mtonjeni, Bele, Tulasizwe, and Pimville started trickling back to class. Apparently they had been told that lessons in the subjects were taught in Afrikaans, maths, history, geography would be suspended for the time being. So you see, they played with the kids. They lied to them to say, no, don't worry, these subjects will be suspended, you can come back. They will be taught in English. June 5, pupils at Bele Primary stoned the school buildings. June 7, a 5-man deputation from the Urban Bantu Council, accompanied by NP Velsnach, an official of the West Rand Administration Board, met the regional director of Bantu Education to discuss the school strikes. June 8, and I want you to note in this narrative, he puts Enos. He says, police were stoned at Naledi High after they had visited the school to make some inquiries about some matter. That's how he puts it. related to a student leader, Enos Ngutshane, according to Major C.J. Philyun, commander of the Jabulani police station. So I just want you to know, when they arrested Ubabu Enos, eventually, on the 14th of June, he was beaten, and okay, maybe I should tell you how he was arrested, because it's nowhere in the narrative. So on the 14th, the young Babu Enos says to Reverend Frank, "Hey man, I want to go home and get some of my changing clothes, and Pela, I only left in a haphazard way." So he is warned by Reverend that, okay, make sure you check the coast before you get home, because I'm sure there are police there waiting on the watch. And so and then they make a deal that midnight or later that night, Reverend Frank will come pick him up in a Pedro from his house. So he goes home, checks the coast. I will come up. Tell again. When he gets inside, of course his mother gives him a nice shouting. He gets over that. He packs up. He's ready to go to wait to be picked up. Cut a long story short, he waited and waited and waited. The Reverend didn't show up. Now, at this point he's tired. He says, let me go back home, maybe catch some bit of sleep, and maybe he'll come back later, wee hours of the morning. Still, that was his fatal mistake. Because when he went home to sleep, the next thing he heard were voices. He heard voices talking. He only recognized one voice, and that was his mother's voice. "Hey, I'm shy. I'm shy." The other voices, he could not make sense. Who are these people? Until the moment when he opened his blanket and he looked straight into the face of the white policeman who would arrest him. So no time to run, no time to think, nothing. And that is how he would be arrested. They would beat him up, throw him into the van. Jabulani. No, there was no Jabulani police station. So they took him to Protea. They beat him up some more there until eventually they took him to Brixton. Murder and robbery unit. Right? And that's where on the 16th he'll then appear in court. So, you notice how I'm telling you these details. You can't find these details anywhere. When they talk about Enos, June 8th, Naledi High, and they are done. They don't know before, they don't know after. And so, it's irresponsible when we name drop. It's populist politics. I call it petty party partisan politics. Right. It's nothing more than politics. So we shouldn't participate in exercises like that. Moving on very quickly. June 10, pupils at Ngutshane refused to write their social studies exam in Afrikaans. And June 13, this is where most people now, they make noise. June 13, SASM, which was the South African student movement, they call a meeting of reps of different schools in Orlando, Greater Soweto, where students were elected for the first body of what would eventually become the Soweto Student Representative Council. But at that time, that was not their name. Don't let people speak fast to fool you. There was no Soweto Student Representative Committee on the 13th. They were called the Action Committee. These details are very important because when you start making noise about Tsietsi Mashinini, Khotso Siahlolo, those leaders. You must know that when they are called SSRC, it's only from August of 1976, not prior to June 16, meaning not from the 13th of June. So these details, are very, very important. And I always encourage, please, history teachers, if you don't know, please don't intimidate your students just because you are the teacher. If you don't know, please make notes, engage those who know, and come back. It's everybody wins. We're all learning. So I say these details because, we need to know some of these moments that we missed in the mainstream narrative of the 1976 uprising. So the caucus sits on the 13th at Donaldson Center in Orlando. And it's very important to note that Utietsi, when you speak of Utietsi Mashinini, it is not, how do you put it? We love being populist, and we're not responsible with our historical material. Fair enough, Tsietsi was a leader at Morris Isaacson. Fair enough, Tsietsi was chosen in this action committee meeting where he would become the face and the name of the campaign. But you must read Black Roses. This is Umamusongile Kabelo. She writes this book in 2001. Is it not an insult that we've never heard of this book before? We are 21 years later. And for me to get this book, I had to contact her directly. Open Earth and Black Roses. Again, I told you about the story of the student Christian movement, Naledi High. I told you about Untate Raboroko's role. She does not mince her words with how she became politicized. She captures some of that in this book. But also when you read this book, you also get the anger of how much black women are not remembered the way we remember black men. The way we remember young black students who are males is not the same as we do for young black females. And so it's important to so this book is also equally, it joins Merakala's book. Now it's very important. Now it's very important when we talk, just taking it, so the 13th, the caucus happens. I wanted to tell you about Utietsi Mashinini, but what I wanted to say there, so that because of time, I wanted to say it must be not taken for granted that, a democratic process is not always democratic. So when people say he was the president of the Student Representative Council of all the, at the time it was not LRC, it was SRCs. Hey, some of these kids were like, we were not consulted. So there was no time to beef because this meeting happened 3 days before D-Day, the 16th. So that decision was taken, representative of the different schools came back, and obviously, the posters were being prepared, the Koshatai students were telling the other students, boom, on the morning of the 16th, in the different assemblies around the schools in Soweto, I'm a principal, I'm a placard and news. Now they were surprised. That's how organized. So when I look at the youth of today, there's only one word of advice. And I take it from Kwame Traoré. Kwame was one of the many husbands of Umamu Miriam Makeba. You know Umamu Miriam Makeba, hey, she was a free woman, She was very free. So Kwame was one of her husbands, and he was a leader of the Pan-African movement. And he said it once. He said the only words of advice I can give to the youth is organize, organize, organize. Full stop. No fancy English, no fancy terms, jargon. The biggest problem with the youth, you are disorganized. When you say you want to take up an issue, you fight amongst yourselves first. By the time the issue emerges, you contest each other in front of everybody. We saw it with Fees Must Fall recently. And so we must understand that generation of 76, issues were taken bangazi, but they ran with it. Now, it must be underlined. Stop thinking that survivors of 1976 knew each other. These were students from different schools in Soweto. Most of them were seeing each other there for the first time. They did not know each other. And just so that we're clear, let me talk to the 14th, and then I'll talk to the 16th. But I want to make this clarity. The plan was each school was going to join the schools in their area, and then they would march to join at Morris Isaacson, which is why Morris enjoys so much attention, because that was the school where most of the schools, it was agreed that that's where they would converge, and then from there they would then march into Dube, into Orlando. So, why the story stops at Orlando, specifically Pefeni and Orlando West, today Matseke High, is because they were planning to continue to go to Orlando Stadium. It is at Orlando where they were going to say their speeches. When they leave Orlando, they were now going to go to the Department of Bantu Education to go and give them their memoranda. Uguti, we are against Bantu education. So the story never got that far. It stopped at Orlando when they would shoot, when the shots started to happen. Now, last week in my lecture, I addressed the issue of the first victims who fell. It is not true that Hector Peterson is the first to fall. But, having said that, it is only responsible the way you use your tongue. It is safe to say he was one of the first, not the first. Because we can't conclusively tell you who was the first. The reason for this is very simple. You can imagine that these students were more than 30,000. How do we know who's the first who was shot elsewhere? Because there were many. But the ones that were caught on camera are the ones we can talk about and therefore made the headlines. And sadly here, Hastings Ndlovu, who was 15 years old, they've now named the street of his home after him, which is just a stone throw from Hector Peterson Museum. He was one also of the first to fall that day. But because we speak to other survivors, we learn whom we omit and we continue to omit because we are so comfortable with this one mainstream narrative of Hector Peterson and, which is very, very wrong. We're not taking anything from the young Hector. And we're going to want to who speak ill. It was a straight bullet. There are people who speak like that. And that is not fair for the poor child. Neither is it fair for responsible historical narrative. We need to be balanced in the way we narrate our history. It's a sad history, but we can't be biased when we get into it. Then, of course, on the 14th, Ubabu Enos was arrested. It's not here in this narrative. But Councillor Leonard Mosala warned the Urban Bantu Council meeting that this enforcement of Afrikaans is going to cause a problem. And basically, then we jump into the 16th. You all have different views of what happened. So, I don't want to talk too much about the 16th because you all have your own different pictures. But I just want to say from Naledi High, the names he writes are Khotso, Siakholo, Sibongile Mthembu, and other leaders. From Maurice Isaacson, the names he writes are Tsietse Mashinini and other leaders. From Orlando West Prefeni, he writes himself, Ubabu Seth Mazibugo, and his colleagues. Now, I wish to say this. Let's bear in mind, it's winter. The 16th of June is winter in South Africa. They have left their schools at 8 at assembly when they go into the march. And they all convene at Morris. So if you look at the photos of these kids, yes, they're in uniform, but you can also see it's winter. Now, the many mistakes we make is we only look at black people who narrate the story. We don't talk about white people who narrate the story. There's a book here that's called Soweto Burning. This is a white man, a family's journey to the 1976 Soweto riots. It's a white man. His name is Don Mb. So what I do in my copy, I write a white family. He says a family, meaning it's a white family. Because he is narrating the side that we don't want to look at. How were white people affected? How do they remember 1976? And he makes it very clear in the book that he does not wish to challenge the narratives written by black people and how they remember. But he wishes to express from the white as a white South African. Now, he was a doctor. He was a radiologist. I remember last week my mother stood up and said, why don't we talk about what happened in the hospitals? Why do we leave the story at the gunshots at the site of struggle? Because do you know some of the doctors' reports that give us details of how some of these kids arrived at the hospital? Parakwana, Pefeni, all these clinics. Because as researchers, we need not be lazy. We also need to go to those bioptic reports. She said she was a nurse in Parakwana in 1976. And the students, as they were being brought in, she says, you don't understand how we had to react. We were parents, but imagine how we had to react to having to deal with that. And I know that there's been different accounts of when Hastings and Ndlovu arrived, how the doctor said there was no way they could save him. His head was split. It was open. And they says there was no way this child was going to survive. And imagine, that's how we know for sure those were not blank bullets. They were not rubber. They were hollow point, if you know anything about bullets. They shot live ammunition to school kids who could only respond with stones. Imagine. So stones against live ammunition, what are we doing here? But this is the details we don't ever go to when we narrate the story. We have survivors today, and it is said that every year we want to hear them relive the moment. However, the only way that we cannot forget is if this story is told to the generation that seems to be. But you guys are the what generation? The Nyaupe, the Nyaupe generation. Yeah? So, you know, it's a bit harsh for adults to dismiss the young, even though we're not saying we're encouraging what they're doing. But I think that there's responsibility on both adults and the young. We collectively have a duty to each other and ourselves, because the way we choose to remember is so important. It's so important. And even though we enjoy democracy and people can join any political party, but it is that very politics that divides us. Just because you're wearing a particular shirt, I won't take you seriously. Do you see how we also are, you know, its own goals from where I stand? Having said all of that, Naledi, because I want to round up. There's a book by Professor Tshepo Mvulane. It's also for sale here. So most of the books I'm not giving you things you can't get. These things, you can get them from Bridge Books. Now, Professor Tshepo Mvulane is an academic, he's a scholar. Thabo roped him in for the SADET program. Tshepo was a student at FFN during 1976, and he names his book Counter Memories of June 1976. So he acknowledges that there are many versions, and he's giving his version. What's important is I invited him to come, and he did what we do as academics. No, I'd rather refer you to so and so. He's more the right person. There is no wrong and right person for this. If this is a duty we have to our communities, at least we can contribute to the conversation and the dialogue. And we owe each other that much. Now, I just want to give an opportunity of a few words before I wrap up. I just want to check in the audience, because we're in Naledi. One of the things we need to, which I like by community education, is some of the survivors are present in the audience. I want to just check from the audience, and I want to give them 3 minutes. If not even 3, 2 minutes, if they could come and just say something that they want to say before I conclude. Dr. Enos, I'll begin with you, and then, I'll see you. Mam Pinky, you're definitely on. Okay? So, you can speak from there, it's fine.
Thank you very much, Tshepo, for the lecture and for sort of clarifying some of the issues that led to the student uprising in June 1976.
Your name?
Yes.
For the record, your name.
My name is Enos, as it has already mentioned. By the way, I'm now a professor. Enos There's one aspect that I wanted to clarify, Tshepo.
Sure.
It's the role that was played by the youth clubs.
Right.
It is so important. listening to you just focusing on the student Christian movement.
Right.
That's the end.
Right.
But we had 3 strong youth clubs in Soweto. The first one established by Raboroko. We used to call it Teen Challenge.
Right.
Later the name changed to Teen Outreach.
Right.
Then we had one in Dube, Youth Alive, right? Led by Brasiza. Then we had another one in White City Jabal, the Young Ambassadors. So that's where we were conscientized as the young students. So let us not miss that aspect of the role that was played by the youth clubs. Tshepo is right by saying some of the writers, they're populist, right? They just write whatever they want. If you listen to what or read what Frank is saying, for example, he writes what he likes. There's one incident that he doesn't write about there. When he was summoned to go to John Foster Square. Mm-hmm. And all of us met Raboroko to say Frank cannot go alone to John Foster Square. How are we going to know if he's arrested? There were no cell phones those days. And we said, who is going to accompany him to John Foster Square? Everybody. They all died. I'm the only one who said, yes, I'm going with you. And I'm wanted at that time, seriously wanted. But I took Frank there, went to the 10th floor of John Foster Square. He was interrogated for about 2 hours. I don't know what he said to the Boers, but when he was walked out by one of the senior officials there, the guy came to me and said, from here you are going straight to Westgate, court number 19A, and hand yourself there. And what I did, down the lift, I said to Frank, hey Baba, I dashed. Never went to that police, to the court where I was summoned to go. Those are some of the nitty-gritties that we're supposed to talk about, right? Of the bravery of our young students those days. Okay? But we're selective all the time. We are selective all the time. Another issue Tshepo didn't tell you about. 2 years ago, my branch in the south of Juba appointed me for East Taland. Don't get plans. And you know what happened? The information goes to the Department of Culture in Pretoria. Department of Culture writes to June 16 Foundation. And the June 16 Foundation, what it does, it opposes it. I'm telling you. Those are some of the details that people are not talking about.
Yeah.
But they address issues that Tshepo is raising, that we are so selective when it comes to writing about the 1976 uprising. I can go on and on and on.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry.
Right. Excellent. Now, I want to also give another opportunity to another elder. Muruti, are you ready? Raboroko.
Thank you, Pedro-Nehru Raboroko. It's a funny name. I'm not responsible. My parents are responsible. I think what you are narrating here is what has been troubling me for many, many, many years. That those who are writing stories, they are not necessarily reflecting what actually happened during that time. That's number one. And number two, if they happen to write, this is not taught to our own children at school. They don't know. I heard you when you were asking them what do they know about the 8th of June. And I felt pity for them. Because this is what they should be knowing. They should not just call themselves Singamakon free, not knowing history.
Right.
And I don't know what could be done that actually there should be a way in which this type of history is being taught, equally so that these young people must know and value. And value, ukuba i-born free. Most of them don't value ukuba i-born free. They just say it. But you can only value it when you know so that you must know that there are people who really, sacrifice. You should be where you are. I think that's what I could say.
Thank you. Now, for the record, Dr. Pedro-Nehru Raboroko is the firstborn to Dr. Raboroko, who served in the executive with Proff Sobukwe. This name of Prof is a problem with Mr. Robert Sobukwe. So we know some of our adults, but we don't know them at the same time. We think we know them, but we only have an idea, and we need to just assist each other here. And not knowing is not a crime, but not wanting to know is a crime. Okay? So this is why exercises such as this one are priceless. Now, another elder, Mam Pinky, you are not running away from this. She's one of the survivors of Naledi High. Mam Pinky Sitori. She's one of the activists here in Naledi.
Professor Manotsi Ntate Ngutshane ka 76 Naledi senior tsaro re santsane re le banyane ra pharabusa 26 Ntate Ngutshane le Ntate Raboroko ba buile tse ngata ke ba tlo senyana Senna ke tla rata mo se kopa mo baneng ba Naledi, especially the students, together le Tshepo le Kwape ya bona ona le lekgatlo e meng re kope le teacher Tshepo for this program e ka dileng last week Tuesday. Let us continue it. Maybe once a month re be le bana re tlo share information le bona. Karuna ka usane ra tsamaya re Olifants Play. Re tlo tsamaya le information. Ha re duleng re share information. Baba maybe we had the Ntate Mashabela here, who was a journalist ya go star. Ile Ntate wa Naledi ka mo mra ba tswene. Ke dintho tse tshwantse le ditsebo di activists tsa Naledi ke bo mang. Naledi ina le di activists tse ngata tse di ka thusang lona, especially history students. Ha re se ra tlohella tsebo e re na le yona re ba le yona re emabike. I thank you.
Before you run away. Okay, before she runs away, I just wanted to say something in terms of the geography of Naledi. Kikupa uthaluse Iraq, Beirut, Lusaka.
Another thing, more 9 provinces, more South Africa. This is the township that was recognized by Comrade Oliver Tambo. Why? Naledi Kyona, Eile Yafa, the block, Mabizo Adi country, Zenedi Tusa ANC country. Renale Afghanistan. Afghanistan is starting from Hawaii. We are Kako Shoprite. Renale Cuba 1 and 2. Cuba 1 and 2 get Rayuk. Renale Nicaragua. Nicaragua Kiem. Starting from Batswening, Re Sunrise, Re Good Hope, re ye Naledi High. Naledi High e ko Nicaragua. Re na le Moscow ka mo garage bo ikemeleng ho ya ko di-7. Re be le Lusaka ke ka ko Karabo.
Ke Haruna.
Lusaka ke ka ko Karabo. Lusaka e fella kae opposite ya Pilgrim.
That's right.
Re be le Angola ke ka ko Thabo. Starta mo Tarotong. Iye ha Razor. Iyo kwerekengele ya Rrepresentative. I felle ko Thabo. Re be le Vietnam. Thomas ko Vietnam. Di Goliath ho ya Naledi extension up to Kabelo pele ha Chomani. Nna ke dula Soviet 1. Soviet 1 ke ka ko stationeng. Ke Soviet 1 mo. Before the demarcation say di etsahala, we had Soviet 2. Soviet 2 in ele ka go dithurumu mo de re bitsa Makhausen pele. Rena ke mentioned Cuba 1 and 2. Yes. It was easier by then for her to tsamaisa information re tsebo right Tshepo offing I want Nicaragua information ya tsama. Thank you.
Akiri, today's theme was Naledi's marginalized contribution to the struggle, right? And what has just happened here today is priceless. You won't get primary sources like this in your everyday classroom. Peace. Fortunately, when we do such exercises, we make sure we record because these things must be shared. We'll have this up on YouTube because it's not for us. We don't do this for ourselves. We do it for the benefit of everybody. Okay? Ordinarily, because anything we do, we charge. So we fortunately are saying, no, look, for example, me coming here, I'm not expecting a single cent. All I want is that we actually take what we do seriously. Okay? Now, I want to just check from the elders that are in the audience. You know, I mean, I want to give you an opportunity. Let me just give Datem Hulumo, who's my neighbor, just for him to say something before I wrap up. On the mic. Speak on the mic.
I was actually in Naledi High as well. Dr. Mvulane was my senior. But most importantly, you know, what touches me is Tshepo. Tshepo came and we started all this thing together with Kabelo. And we had a lot of problems. You know, many people were asking us, is this ANC coming now? Because during those days, Mr. Mvulane, there was no politics. You know, predominantly there was BCM. I think you remember. And we had Simanga, who were there from the varsity. We had Otiro, who were actually now teachers during those days. You know, to be honest, this June 16 is selectively narrated. You know, it's for our responsibility, and I'm just worried because so much is being done on this project, and I don't know whether we will be able to preserve it for the generation to come. I see some other people are recording this, and surely I was talking to Thabo because to you, Kabelo, that Tshepo will be leaving us very soon here. Tshepo doesn't stay in Naledi, you know, but Tshepo made a tremendous job. You know, he knows we never slept. We went to many people to try to narrate this thing to the correct perspective. And I think he's done a sterling job. Kabelo, it's for you and some other guys that I think we should actually carry on with this thing because it's going to be recurring. We should not just talk about June 16, we said so, you know. So there's not much to say except to say you owe us to leave many things behind. And I'm responsible for that. I spoke to you. I don't know much to say, but to be honest, Naledi have played a part. The narrative here is truly reflective that Naledi have played a very serious part. We cannot talk about June 16 without talking about Naledi, you know. And we need to change the plaque there. The department involved should really correct this mess, you know, into correct perspective. I'm not going to say much, you know, I'm just emotional as well, you know. But Tshepo, that's good so far, brother.
No, he's not going to run away. Wait. Kikupa uba tlhalose se ka ntate Kabelo. Because it's very important.
There are a lot of people that are supposed to have been here, like Sikano, Kalefang. I think some of you knows him. He actually addressed God Thomas Mufole some stage. I had also a comrade, Barke Kabelo Nasnamazel. He ended up being a lawyer, actually was my schoolmate as well. You know? Kabelo played a very major part. At some stage we ran away, me and him, to Pukeng. Actually my mother comes from Pukeng. You know, when the Boers were looking for us, by using the attendance register, you know, we had to run away, you know. We ended up, I remember, Ropela, the Fatsilela, La Ronala, you know, and can you believe, you know, we had to conform now to the homeland issues. So Kabelo played a part and we named him Moralo region in that way. And like what Memas Tole was saying, I'm actually from Vietnam, Naledi. So Kabelo is not far, it's a street away, that region. So he also played a very major part. And Murati, I don't know if you know Murati. I don't see anybody from Tseke's area. He also played a tremendous role because, you know, Itena Hatavatola. His father was actually against us. You know, but we couldn't all live together, you know. So there are quite a lot of people, both Sidiso was a CEO of ESCOM as well. He played a part, he's from Naledi. We went there with Tshepo, you know, to get also story as we're trying to really put everybody into the picture who played a part, especially from Naledi, because this, it was centrally to say Naledi played a part, you know. So I really don't know whether it covered everything.
No, sure. Thank you very much. You know, one of the humbling experiences of doing this kind of work is you are actually doing work that is acknowledging people who are everyday people. People who ordinarily don't get mentioned anywhere, recognized anywhere. And you get to sit with them and actually, off record, get as to what exactly what happened here. I'm sad that since Kifikile Naledi, you've got the wrong principals in your schools. I'm embarrassed to say that. It's not something I can say with pride. You know, as we sit here, not even one is here. And we want to claim we're talking about a youth agenda. Kanja. You know, we are in what is called Motlana. Mepinki was relaying to you the different pseudonyms of this township and how it was divided in what we would call colloquial speak. Afghanistan, Lusaka. Now, Motlana covers the 5 schools in this area. Thabo, Thomas Mfulo, Naledi High, Moletsane High, and Prudence. We excused Prudence today. They were there last week. We excused them today because they said Bangola. But I do not know how I am a principal of a township school. I'm claiming my school is struggling. And then when we do get assistance, we are not interested. It boggles the mind. I don't know how many appointments I've had with principals of the 5 schools. I've only sat with one. And I remember she said to me, don't record me. Kanti, what are we discussing here? I mean, is this not public knowledge what we're doing in these schools? So these are the attitudes which are sad. And there's a lot of groundwork we've done. We can't cover everything in one session. But, you know, I'm going to leave Naledi soon. Because anyway, I was only here for a year. But can you imagine how many sessions I could have had with the schools? And the principals, just because they are the personalities they have. Who suffers? The kids. Not the principal. The kids don't know what they're missing because they don't even know that there's something they're missing. So, it's a sad state of affairs. But moving, because I want to close, and the way I want to close is I will leave to the MC to bring the team, because I think the team that organized this, they need to be acknowledged. They need to be seen by everybody. I'm just one of the team members. So I'll leave that to the MC. But in my closure for the lecture, I want you to know that Naledi only is born in 1956. So, Naledi High, 1963. Thomas Mfulo, 1974. Thabo, 1974. I want you to know details of your township, because those details come with a context and a story. Now, I said to appreciate Naledi, you must put it in the context of the larger story of Soweto. Let me tell you who named Soweto, because I didn't tell you. His name. The paper that I distributed that you have with you. No, don't be confused. The paper is called The Bantu World. In the edition of The Bantu World of December 2018, I'm holding it in my hands. There's an old man called Dr Tshepo Mvulane. This old man, his full name, Maseki Mocho, Kitshehla Mike Pahlane. Please write this name down. Google this name. Engage, challenge, debate your teacher to engage this name, because this man is responsible for naming not just Soweto. Uncle Tom's Hall, he's the one who named it. The same guy. Chiefs, he's the one who named it. Same guy. When he names Uncle Tom's Hall, he said, he was also referring to Mary Jane. So Uncle Tom was referring to what today you call Model Cs. Black people who are white inside. Right? So, yeah, your coconuts. Those are males. And then the females of the same condition were Mary Janes. He explains it. The edition I'm holding is the 2018 December edition. He narrates all these things. Let me be particular. He even named Nelson Mandela the Clarence Darrow. Because he said Mandela, he only saw let me just read in verbatim. Even the Nelson Mandela he nicknamed Africa's Clarence Darrow, after none of Mandela's clients were ever sentenced to death. In the latter years, he regarded Ntate Mandela as another Uncle Tom of Orlando West. He lived a very sad life. He was not honored. He's not been honored anywhere. That's why I'm saying, when you talk about Soweto, even the very name is painful when you think about. Now, let me talk to when he named Soweto. South Africa's biggest township, Soweto, was named after Ntate Mike Pahlane won a competition through the Joburg manager of Native Affairs, J.W.C. Carr. The competition was to establish what name to give to this Bantu star. Pahlane boasted of having given even the name Chiefs to the Pefeni soccer outfit Kaizer Chiefs. So, I'm just giving you a glimpse, I can't give it all. But I want you to get a sense of the violence of memory. That the things that should be basic knowledge to you, you are not taught in your schools. And by the way we are going, you will still not be taught these things. So, with those words, wrapping up with my lecture on the 45th anniversary of the Soweto Uprisings, and the little that I was able to share with you on Naledi's, mainstream, Naledi's marginalization from the mainstream narrative of 1976. I hope today you can walk out of this lecture having a sense of how much you need to know, how much is there, the rich history. As I talk, I'm remembering a lot of things I wanted to tell you. I'll only tell you this one is the last one. Behind us here, just behind us, there's a sign called Punis. That sign, that house, is home to the youngest child who was shot here on this very street. That child was 9 years old. You've never heard of him. Do we know this story? Those who live in Naledi? Did you say yes? Come quickly. Come quickly and then just quickly.
Once again, Dumelang.
Your name?
My name is Sudi Radicalo. About the story of this, I don't know whether to call a father or a young man. His name was Noble Tilimabas. He was schooling at Ikemeleng Primary School. He was shot. There was a green car that was patrolling, shooting to the group of students. It happened that the young man, on his way home from school, that's where he got caught by the love ammunition here in the stomach, and he passed away after 3 days at Raboroko Hospital. And the person who took Noble Tili Mabaso to hospital at Raboroko, it was Jeffrey. He's been known by the name Duri. Then it was, I think, Tate Jeffrey, he stays there next door. He's next door because of, I think, the wall of that house, and that they joined to each other. So I think Dr. T.
All right. Because we don't have time, and I'm closing on this note. This child, he is so correct. His name was Tili. The father passed away in 2010. The mother is surviving. It is sad to talk to the mother when she says the ANC came in 2013. But it's a Sedikubo, you know? Okay, let's not be excited. They came and but it's Sedikubo, and in the end, they are an ANC family. Okay, and she says to me, "How na motho tlile mo lapeng until ntate wa lapa a tlhokofala ka 2010." And when ANC came in 2013, but Sadikubo, we asked the question, every year ha letsa meetlo wa 76, ho tla jwa motse o le sa o tsebi. I'm not going to say what else she said, it's not for here, but when she fast forwards to 2018, RDA iba kupile ko Orlando Stadium. Musimaimane arumufa chelete mmeo for ngwana of what happened in 76. Because there's such a stronghold of ANC, bana balwana le mama. We don't accept DA money. Tshepo, Banabaka made me not accept, and I did not accept it. So Musimaimane and his colleagues baloko kasa komrao. Ya holo, ba khutla. Ha ba khutla ba mufa card ya ShopRite checkers. Okay, me akira ba tšhelete ya rona. Mara at least o ka ilo crosser he o tla bona crosser. You know, Thabo, we're an ANC family. For DA to do that, and we don't recognize them, we don't care about them. But it's only DA that was able to do that for us. Luena, and this hit home. Luena, utlilemo, utlobata information. It's really to run to refer on a molape. Can you imagine having a conversation like that? And I have, in the end, what we did, me and her, we took a photo. And because of the sensitivity, I'm not going to share the rest of my conversation with her. But this is tea. So you won't see it from where you're sitting. You can walk up when we're done. I've put Tilly here for you to see this child. Whenever you talk about Hector Peterson, whenever you talk about Hastings Ndlovu, you must know that Tilly is a metaphor of all those young kids that died and nobody speaks about. He was in primary school. He was 9 years old. Okay? And this is how I want to rest this lecture today. With those words, Kilewile Ahulu. Enkos.